Hello. Sorry, I'm running like a tiny bit behind because my whole computer crashed when I plugged in a headset. So I love this. I love streaming. Can you all just like say a little comment if you can hear me good and everything's like working good? Like in the comments, somebody. Hello. Amazing. Perfect. I'm sweating a lot because like literally 5 minutes ago, it was like, wow, computer is not going to work. Nothing works. Headset broke computer, as they are wont to do. So I'm going to like breathe a little bit, just like take a deep breath, but it's good because this is a pretty chill talk. It's not like a tutorial talk. It's just more kind of showing what I do for my job. I actually also have a special guest for the end of the stream. You could probably guess. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you could probably make a pretty educated guess about who it is. But it's another concept artist, and they are going to talk about similar stuff, how they work on concept art in AAA games. So I'm going to preface all this by saying, preface, that's it. By saying this is very specific to Naughty Dog and to it, like it does extrapolate out to like AAA games in general. Did I just say AAA gays? My goodness, AAA games in general. But it's we have a pretty specific way of working. We have a specific pipeline, and I'm going to get into that a little bit during the presentation. So really, I'm trying to give you a breakdown of sort of what the process is through the whole production day to day, because I think there's still a lot of misconception around what concept artists do on games like ours. And I get a lot of questions like, how do you work there with stylized work? So it's like, I will show you how I work there with stylized work. I do a lot of random stuff. So yeah, let's dive right in. So I'm going to start by kind of talking a little bit about what the timeline of a production looks like at a company like ours. This is just for concept, by the way. Like production pipelines look different for different departments, but we start in what's called the blue sky section. I'm going to get more into that in the beginning, just like let me just reset myself. I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. Then we move into full production, and then final stretch towards the gold master and final product. So blue sky is the ideation, and this is what you're going to see mostly this in an art book. You'll see some of production stuff as well, and I'll like show you some of that stuff, but you tend to see work from this tiny little section when you're looking at an art book, because it's the like fun stuff. It's like exploration, trying to figure out what this game even is, trying to figure out who the characters are in it, story development. A lot of the work from concept for that happens here. We still do it all the way through production, but a lot of it is happening here. Production is simply making the game. So it's doing the asset creation. You're still exploring, but you're really just creating the characters and creating the costumes. And as we move through this, it's like a tunnel vision. We start to focus, widescreen, so like my hands look really big. We're trying to focus in on details as we go. So we're starting big, moving into like finer and finer details. So you're going to see that as we go through these. And then the final stretch is notes. I'm going to show you a lot of notes, kind of helping out with any like loose ends that we can help out with, and the final polish. So going through the game with a fine-tooth comb and, seeing if there's things that we could improve on. So let's start with blue sky, the exploration stage, which is a lot of this work you've probably seen if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. I forgot to post on Twitter that this was happening right now because I was in such a panic. So, who are the characters? This is like super early. I think this is actually the first painting I did for the project specifically, once I moved fully onto it. And so this was very early version of who the Scar kids were, who became the Seraphites, eventually became Yara and Lev. All we knew was they, were kind of these transient children at the time, and they had scars on their faces. It was literally like the most base level notes because no one knew yet what this was. It was just like, oh, we're thinking of having this like character in the game. So at this stage, concept can like do whatever. It's like, okay, here's like an idea for what these kids could look like, or yeah, we don't have much to go on at that point. So it's just exploration, trying to make stuff that would inspire the writing team or inspire creative direction to be like, oh, this is cool. Let's like start moving in that direction. Stuff like that. We also did a lot of story beats. For this game, we did a big pitch, like a story pitch where the creative director, Neil, walked through beat per beat every major moment in the game in like a video. And so he had the concept artist do these like narrative illustrations so that people weren't just sitting there listening to someone talk for a very long time. It's like 2 hours or something. So all of the concept artists did basically these like elaborate storyboards, which I guess they're not quite storyboards, story beats is what I call them. But these were just to sort of sell these narrative moments and be like, I forgot to say that if you have questions, ask them in the chat. And DDR Muchacho, who is my lovely mod, who has put up with so much for me in the past couple of days as I learned how to Twitch, he's going to keep track of them, and then I'll answer them at the end. I'm so sorry. So yeah, these are the story beats that we do early on to help sell the project to the whole team. So once this all got put together, the whole team got to watch this and get this project pitched to them. So we were all on the same page about like, and when I say whole team, I don't mean just concept, I mean like the entire development team, plus people like outside in Sony and stuff. So yeah, this was a way for us to figure out what we were even doing with this game, which was a very large game, as any of you who played it know. More of the same. Sometimes the story beats would get a little more elaborate, like have a bit more of environment with them if the environment was important. Also, some of the environment concepts did some too to help sell the environments in the game as well. So it wasn't just character doing this stuff. Environment also played a part in it. And one with our boy Joel. Oh, Joel. Also in this stage, we were putting together a trailer, which was the one of the dance scene. So at this time, I guess this would have been like early production at the kind of the end of the Blues. It was like very early production, this stuff. So putting together the like character look for Dina and Ellie took place a lot earlier in production. And the way that production works with concept is like we look at needs and when deadlines are coming up. So we knew this was coming down the pipes and that we needed to figure out Dina and Ellie first. So all of our attention were on Dina and Ellie in the beginning. And then characters like Manny and the, sort of the more ancillary characters, and even Joel came online as we moved through production based on deadlines that would occur. They were mostly external deadlines, like putting out a trailer or putting out a demo, things like that. We would sort of focus on finalizing the full production of a character so that you had like, final quality for the characters that you see in the trailers. And this is starting to show more of like the actual breakdown of how we do this. So there's a lot of photographs, there's stuff grabbed off Pinterest to try to get an idea of like, who is this person? What sort of stuff does she wear? And you can see like really early on, Dina's like this really femmy. We had a lot of like floral prints that we were gonna put on her because the art direction team, John Sweeney and Ashley Swodowski for character, were talking about like using this image system of flowers around Dina. So we started experimenting with that, putting little flowers on dresses, and we ended up moving her obviously in a much different direction. But this is kind of that very early first stage. Who is Dina? What type of stuff is she into? What type of stuff does she wear? What's her personality like as we moved into that, getting that trailer figured out. So that kind of pulls us into production. Blue Sky's very quick. It's like we don't have a ton of time in there because obviously we have a game to make and there's a whole team of in-house. We end up with 300 people, I think, worked on this, if not more than that. And then we also have like outsourced and stuff that work on these projects. So we don't have like a ton of time to like explore and have fun. It is a very lovely, calm, wonderful time in production, but then we have to actually get the work done. And the unfortunate truth is most of what you see in stuff that comes out about concept, it does happen. It's what you're seeing from the Blue Sky stage. Like, because the stuff we do in production is, as you're about to see, fun, but it's not quite as like glamorous. And it's all stuff that like I've posted some of this because I want to be open with people about what this role is, and I want them to know what they're getting into if they're trying to get into character concept or concept in general. But it's a lot of very detailed work, as we'll move into. We do still do nice paintings in the earlier parts of productions, probably right up to about mid-production. We're still doing some paintings as we're figuring out, we're kind of narrowing in. We know the overall story, but then we have these like key moments, like this is from the grow house scene, where it's like we're still trying to feel out what the vibe is, like what the mood of the scene is, as well as trying to figure out costuming and how that plays into everything. So this is actually a costuming piece, which we were trying to determine what do their underwear look like. Ashley Swadowski's direction was, obviously it has to be practical. They're working right now. They're like on patrol. So stuff that's comfortable, cotton, breathable, stuff that you would wear if you're going out doing that stuff. But still designed, like still a lot of thought put into all of this stuff. And little details, like I had wanted the sock to be still left on. You actually, if it is on her, you don't see it because the framing changed. But this is also an area to start pitching little things like that kind of add to the moment or add to the character through costuming. We're also getting, into more details in this stage. Like this is Dina's bracelet. We went through quite a bit of iteration with Dina's bracelet, trying to choose, like by this point we'd already narrowed down, like, okay, we know Neil knows exactly what he wants for this, but like, is it gold, is it silver, is it solid, what sort of stuff do we want to do with it? And we even go into, this was outsourced, so I follow along through the whole process, just like I do for every character, and an element of costume. So it's like, okay, we get something back and it's like, that's not quite what we're looking for. It's like a painted enamel thing. I am doing the right thing. Okay, I did this in the last stream too. I'm looking on my second monitor at my like OBS thing, but like my mouse is over here and I'm like having this crazy disconnect. But trying to resolve what this is. And we get very particular and very detailed about things. Like you do get pretty close to this bracelet, but we get very specific. So it helps, it does sell the realism of it. Also during this time, so Ashley Swadowski is incredible. She's like the best, or like character art director that's ever lived. But she had put together, with the help of John Sweeney and the creative director Neil, this kind of overall sort of vision board of like what the different characters from the different factions, like the type of materials and the type of clothing that they'd be wearing, so that we would have this sort of uniqueness amongst individual characters. Like Dina and Ellie feel unique, but the materials and the textiles and the colors that you see on them tend to be within the same family. So Dina and Ellie and the Jackson people have this very rancher vibe. It's a lot of natural materials. So if you look at this, let me do a little zoom in here. This is a good, it's so low res. This is a good example of like the type of stuff, like just a very kind of like country rancher stuff. These Carhartt type jackets, and I put duck boots on her, I think, for a lot of the concepts. Just these are riding boots down here. So things that feel that sort of rancher Jackson, Wyoming vibe. Whereas the WLF, this is a Leah concept that happened probably towards the end of mid-production. They have more of like they're wearing a lot of like hiking gear and a lot of synthetics, and a lot of military type stuff, so like the khakis and things like that. This has a lot of blues in it. They ended up skewing a lot more green. So the WLF people are more like in a grayish, greenish, khaki color realm, whereas Ellie and Dina and the Jackson people are like a little bit warmer. I think Ellie's main color is blue and Dina's main color is like a burgundy red. So that stuff was very thought out from the very beginning, which means at this stage, anything that we're doing is still like exploring. Like we're still exploring, okay, what can we do with the costumes within this kind of space that we've built for them without just, it's no longer just like sky's the limit. It's like, okay, we have limits now and we have to design within them. We have to make unique characters that feel like, you know, unique people, but that still fit within this like structure that we've built. Otherwise it gets overwhelming because there's so many characters in this game and we jump through time and lots of stuff happens in it. By the way, if you haven't played this game, like, I'm gonna spoil stuff. I can't help it. Like, we're going through. I'm very sorry. Hopefully it's not like I'm not gonna say like a major spoiler or anything, but so this is also the stage where we're starting to do very specific callouts for the types of textiles and garments and stuff that we're looking at, because we have a sorcerer who, a costume sorcerer who goes and actually collects these costume elements for us. So like she'll go to costume houses for certain things, or just to the store and buy us like specifically a sports bra that looks like this and specifically pants that look like this. So when we do this, we'll send her the concept and we'll also send her like, these are the things we want. And that is because we scan everything. This is me. This is from Uncharted 4. If you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen this. I post it all the time. I'm very proud of this horrible monster that is my face. But this is a 3D scan of my beautiful face. This, like, it's messy when they scan. This thing here, it looks like I had something on my face. It's not. I move too much. Like, look at me sitting here. I can't sit still for the life of me. I don't know why they choose me to scan because they know I don't sit still, but they didn't need my face for this. They were scanning a costume. But we basically, Ashley Sadowski, with the help of the character modeling team, obviously, during Uncharted 4, established this whole pipeline where our characters and all of our costume elements are 3D scanned. So we go into this room, we put the costumes on our own bodies, and we have a bunch of people at the studio of various body types and genders and stuff that put them on, and we stand on like a rotating Lazy Susan, and they like hold it looks like an iron. They hold it up and it scans us. And we, then that either gets into outsourcing to clean up or the 3D team cleans it up. And we make assets out of it. So we have been very involved in that process just to kind of help speed it along and to take the character modeling team has a lot more on their plate than the character concept team. So Ashley had us take on quite a bit more of that, helping to organize it and schedule it, trying to find actors and the body doubles that we needed for this stuff, as well as we would hand distress clothing. So I wished I was trying to find some photos of it because we do have photos and eventually I'll post them on Twitter or something, but we would hand distress. So there, we'd like lay the clothes on the floor and take like Hollywood dirt and like grime everything up and then like cut denim and stuff to like fray it and like rub it with sandpaper to make it feel like it was like frayed appropriately and stuff. So the costume pipeline ended up very much like a Hollywood costume pipeline, and it really, really came through in the finals. Like all of the infected stuff where they have like the tattered clothes and everything, we did that. We like ripped up stuff, got like soaked, like stood in the room and like got like hosed down so it would like stick to us. It's like, it's actually amazing. It's so fun and wild that we do this stuff. And then we scanned it like that. We scanned like, rotating around with wet, clingy, dirty, ripped up clothes on us. And that's the clothes that you end up seeing on the infected in the game. So it's kind of a newer process. And I don't know, like, some studios are definitely adapting to this to the same level that we are, but it's not the typical pipeline that you're used to, which was concept art would do a turnaround, like a bunch of drawings or paintings, and then 3D team would model it. We don't really work that way anymore. And some of the legacy stuff, like Ellie and Joel, because they had to look like Ellie and Joel from the first game where we didn't scan, there's some like blending that happens between them where we're kind of taking the old stuff and the new stuff and kind of like trying to make it work together. But like any new characters, fully scanned, all the costumes fully scanned and touched up and, adjusted by the character modeling team, which is how, as somebody who does stylized work, I can still work on projects like this and still be very useful, because now it becomes more about attention to detail and narrative, like trying to sell the narrative of these characters through their costuming and through the world. So now we're going to get into narrative spaces, which I've never actually shared this concept before, I realized. This is Ellie's room. I guess it just wasn't like, I don't know, it just felt like a fast concept that I didn't take time to like polish it up as much as I want to. I need a drink, sorry. I'm so dry. The smoke is just destroying me. But I also get tasked. This isn't everybody that does this. We all kind of play to our own strengths, or they sort of use us for our own strengths. But I also do a lot of character-driven narrative spaces, because characters, as you know, are not just defined by their clothing. You as an individual are also defined by like what you're into, and I'm sure your space looks a certain way. Like, look at my space. It's a cat scratcher and a couch and a cat. Like, it's like says something about me. I don't know what it says, but it says something about me. So it's the same thing with video game characters. It helps build out like who is Ellie? Like, what is she into? What type of stuff does she have? I wanted her to have a cat. Someone made the point that it would be kind of mean though, because like she leaves. Like, what happens to the cat when she leaves? Well, I thought it'd be cute if she had a cat. So then that also, like, you know, I'm not going to just hand off a stylized painting and be like, make this. This gets discussed with the art direction team. I worked pretty closely with EP. We have 2 art directors, environment art directors. He's the other one. I worked closely with him on this. And so I send these notes with like, here's the type of stuff that I want in the room, so that the environment team can look at this and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I get. They don't have to like decipher the painting. They can understand by looking at this what I'm talking about. Sometimes that's just notes. Like in this case, I did notes on Ellie's desk from when she was younger versus when she was older. So you see her, because it flips through time, you see her when she's younger. And not all this got in because it's a discussion, and you know, there's time restraints and stuff. So these are just pitches basically. But yeah, these were notes I had given on like when she's younger. She's not been there very long, so let's make it so that the bookshelf is like a little bit less full. It's like a little bit more like stuff's falling over. I wanted to put that toy in there that she got from the first game. Put a lot of comics and games and stuff like that. And then when she's older, then you start to see like, okay, her bookshelves are crammed with stuff. I wanted her like Savage Starlight poster to start being covered up by like other stuff, because she's, you know, grown interested in other things in that time. And I wanted to show like the passage of time through content that's in her bedroom. And like, you can sell that with just words and, you know, some very rough doodles. It doesn't have to be this like drawn out concept. And in fact, with a game of our size, you don't really want to spend time doing detailed concept pieces like paintings for every single note that you're trying to pitch. I also did this for the museum. So I did a lot of the visual design in the museum, and early on it's like, yeah, here's a top-down view with like, let's put some stuff. The Dilophosaurus here, let's put, and this changed. Obviously we didn't put T-Rex skulls here, but we did keep things mostly the same. And yeah, this is how loose this stuff can get. It's like, okay, I had to do a little bit of drawing to show like, there is a Brachiosaurus here. But this is literally just, I'm drawing over the block mesh. I'm just sending it to the designer who's working on it and to the 3D artist to be like, what do you guys think of this? Like, give your input at this stage. It's like they can understand it. They can look at this and be like, all right, got it. It works. It does the job. Some of them are like a little bit more detailed just to show like, you know, there's like, you can kind of see like it's like a skull here. And then the rest is like, oh, rocks, you know, it's just, I don't need to detail it out right here. I'm just going to give you the general gist of it. I also did stuff at this point for like the visual flow. Like this gets more into like art direction stuff, but because this game is so big, some of us on the concept team especially, they'll just be like, the art direction team will be like, you know, can you do handle some of this stuff? And we still send it to them for approval, and we still talk to them and take all their input and everything. But this sort of thing, they're like, yeah, we trust you guys to like, you know, do this sort of stuff. So just kind of we wanted that reveal to be really impressive when Ellie turns the corner and comes out and there's like all these dinosaurs everywhere. So like lighting had to be a certain way, and just trying to help guide what's going to feel good in that scene. As well as, I've shown this on Twitter, just extremely detailed breakdowns of like what type of dinosaurs go, which is my favorite. I loved that. I did a whole like dinosaur scale to human scale. I have to dig it out. I tried to find it, but I did like every dinosaur as a scale too. This is Nathan Drake. And so I was trying to show like, I wanted to make sure the dinosaurs were the right size. And like I counted vertebrae on the outsourced models that we got back. And yeah, I was very into this. There was like a book that she's holding, and if you go back into the game and if you flip the camera over her shoulder, I did pages for like real facts about dinosaurs are in that book, and I think it's like 7 or 8 pages of facts about dinosaurs, which I got off like, it's like very common, very, not very high level dinosaur facts, but they're in there. You can read about dinosaurs in the book that Ellie's holding if you flip the camera over her shoulder. Again, like look at how what is this? It's just words. Like, I guess that's a bird, but it's just doing what it has to do. It's like, you're going to put hawks and eagles here, you're going to put seabirds back there. Very easy, just trying to get the point across. If something was going to outsourcing, it did have to be obviously a little bit more detailed, because I couldn't just walk over to outsourcing and be like, this is what I'm talking about. It has to be a little bit more like, okay, these are clearly some birds. They're still very loose, and, I'm not painting them or anything. I'm just drawing them, but I had to give them a little bit more information. I also did designs for just objects and stuff. I don't remember if I think this did get in. But yeah, anything you see in a video game is designed by somebody. Sometimes the 3D team just handles it. They're like, yeah, I know how to do that. And they'll like handle it themselves. Sometimes concept has to step in if there's like something specific that needs to be done for it. The 3D team tends to be very busy too. Like they don't have a ton of time to sit there, and we kind of help them with that by like not making them have to think through everything as they're trying to just produce all of these assets and everything. Painted murals, like what a dream. I actually loved the museum. Was just a dream. I loved working on it. It was like a little oasis for me. And I should say too that the reason why this area was given such attention, because I spent months on the museum, was because it is a very pivotal narrative moment. It's the moment that the user's been craving through most of the game, which is to spend time with Joel and Ellie, who, they grew to love from the first one. And it's one of the only moments, oh my God, I guess this is where, earmuffs, I guess, but it is one of the only moments that you do get to spend with Joel and Ellie that is happy and lovely and lighthearted. So we wanted the user to feel like they could really sit in that space and experience it and feel awe and feel the emotions of being there with Ellie. So spaces like that where we want the user to slow down and take their time and really live with it, that gets this level of attention. If it's a combat space, that does not get that much attention, because you're going to not pay attention to the environment. You're going to run through and just kill people, and then, or not. I guess you can not kill people, but it's difficult. So yeah, those type of spaces get this level of detail. The aquarium was another one I did. So this is the type, like, this is going up the stairs when you first like get out of the water with Abby and Owen. There's these little cartoons on the wall that are mascots for the aquarium. So I designed those, and then like kind of fitting them into the space. Like, how do they integrate properly? Like, the 3D artist on this, Anthony Vaccaro, did a lot of really nice work, just like fading out the textures, making them really feel like they work in the space. And that's always nice too, like being paired with great 3D artists who can work with you to really see through the vision and add their own touches to it as well. Because it's not just like we're like dictating stuff, like there's a back and forth with all of this. This stuff too, like, there's the thing where Owen leads Abby to the like big open, what is it? The dome. And there's like this kid had lived there before who had like painted murals everywhere and everything. So like adding character to this character that doesn't exist in the game. Like, you never see the kid, but we wanted to add characterization to him through the environment. So that's the type of stuff that I would help out with, is like, how do we make this kid feel like a kid, like a real kid that could have existed, that when you see this, you feel a little bit of like, oh, there's a real kid that lived here at some point. I obviously did horses. I loved this so much. I loved working on the horses. And I got to like flex my like horse color knowledge, which is so dorky. Thank you very much for continuing to follow me when half of the time I just want to talk about horses, by the way. That's very kind of you all. We had one scan, or was it a scan? Yeah, we had one asset for a horse body. It was a American quarter horse. And to get the variety that we needed, we simply tinted it differently and added different type of tack and stuff on it. So these were the tints. The top ones are the tints for any of the horses in Jackson, and the bottom are the tints for any of the horses in the Scar Village or the Seraphite Village. So clearly you can see that we wanted to keep them separate so that you could kind of subconsciously understand that, like, okay, warm horses, Jackson. Cooler horses, Seraphites. Stuff like that. Everything is very, art directed and detailed. And so in using that one asset for the horse, we would tint it, but then we would also add variety we would have a few of each different types of like tack, like the bridle, different types of saddles and halters and things like that. And I think we had like 5 of each, and we would swap them out in different like configurations and then tint them different. So we would kind of direct that a little bit, be like, let's put this version on this horse, and then these are calling out like this horse is specifically this one is specifically this, and we would go through and like do that for all the animals and horses and stuff, which I love. I think it's magical. I did the branding too, the horse brand for Jackson, and filigree for a saddle. So this is getting more into, I did a lot of object stuff. I'm sure you've heard this from other concept artists before, but we also, everything has to be designed. Every aspect of this game is touched by somebody and gets created by somebody. It's 3D, so someone's doing it. So I did a lot of textiles, and I'm going to kind of flip through these. There's quite a few of them, so I'm going to try to go through them. This is Tommy's belt buckle, which I couldn't tell you if this actually made it in or not. I'm pretty sure it did. But like working on a game like this is kind of like cramming for a really big test. Like you're just like hyper focused on it. And then when it ends, you're like, did I do this? I don't remember. Did this get in? It's a blur. Everything is a blur. This is also in the stage of production. This is getting really kind of mid to late production that we're doing. This sort of very, very like, would you ever see Tommy's belt? I'm sure you do, but I don't know how. You're never going to see it this detailed, obviously. A lot of people don't. So I like doing logos. I started in UI. That was my path. I actually worked in UI for 10 years. I worked in games for 13. So I haven't been a concept artist that long. And someone asked me in the other stream that I did earlier, like, do I use that skill set? And yeah, I use it all the time. Like, I love doing fake logos for this game that feel like they could be real. So these are all for the WLF people, trying to make them feel like brands that you would see at an REI or something like that. And I think most of these ones didn't end up on. I'm sad these ones didn't end up on. This is like a little like nod to my home, Bay of Fundy. It's part of Nova Scotia, but I don't think these ended up anywhere, unfortunately. But Switchback, Cardinal, and Ursine all ended up in the game in various places. None of these ended up in it, but I made fake brands for baseball bats. The glamorous adventures of character concept art. Okay, so this is another example of how characterization can be added in even the smallest places. So this was a design for Dina's backpack has a keychain on it. And I mean, you're going to have to go look at it. It is this one right here. But I had thought it'd be really cool. This is the type of stuff like that we're thinking about all the time. I thought it would be kind of cool if she went into a gas station and she like found those nameplate things, but they didn't have one named said Dina, so she just got one that said Diana. So it's like little like characterization things like that sell a character and give them a life, like make them feel like a person that exists outside of what you're seeing on the screen right now. I wish we went with Diana. You wouldn't have been able to read it, so I get why we didn't, but I liked that one a lot. Joel's mug. I mean, if you play the game, you've seen that. We couldn't do the this like style of mug, which I really like. I like this style a lot. I want to own like this specific one, but because they'd already done the animation. So that's another thing that we always have to be thinking of is like they had done the animation to hold a much bigger mug, so they're not going to go in and like change the animation so that we could have a slightly different shaped mug. That's crazy. The animation's always super backs against the wall trying to get stuff done anyway. So this ended up being on more of like a standard size coffee mug. But I drew the design to go on it, and then I drew the journal entry that she draws of it, which I had to make feel kind of different. Yeah. Baby toys for Potato, also known as JJ. We call him Potato. I think it's a better name. But yeah, I don't think any of these actually ended up in the game, but they were still super fun and cute to work on. I designed fake sports teams. I think Stellars ended up in the game. I don't think these two did, but I don't know. I did them. Stuff like that, I don't think, like, would you ever notice this? I don't know. Someone might. It's crazy the things people do notice, so it's there for the people that do look for this stuff. I think it ended up changing a little bit, but this is the key to get into the back of house room in the theater. So like we're getting super, super, super detailed with this stuff and like really like narrowing down. And so you can kind of see how, like, of course they're going to utilize concept to help with this stuff. There's a lot of stuff to do. T-shirts. This is where I get into textile stuff. These were all t-shirt design potential designs for, I think at the time it was Abby that we were looking on doing a t-shirt for, that I think some of these ended up on various NPCs and things. If there's plaid in this game that you notice, I likely did it. I had to do, I think, 20 different plaid textures, and this is a Tommy plaid, as a Dina plaid, as is a T1. This was a recreate of the first Last of Us Joel plaid. And these are all tileable textures that I would just hand off to characters so that they had the texture to throw on the clothing asset. I did Potato's little outfit as well. And fake camo. I made up a camo to put on who did this go on? I forget. I worked with Ashley Sodowski on this one, the guitar, to do the little moth design based off of the design Natalie Hall did for the tattoo, but it had to be slightly different. So new designs of the moth for this. And then this is my favorite thing I did. It didn't end up in the game, and I'm so bummed out. This is a drawing by a 15-year-old that he looks kind of like Mel Gibson. It had to look like it was done in pencil. It's the best work I've ever done, and I'm extremely proud of it. Look at his muscles, look at his feet, look at the shading. Everything is good about it. I'm super bummed out it was too it was too bad. Neil was like, it's too bad. We can't use this. So there it is, the best concept art that I could offer. Close second was this one. Like, come on. This though was, Owen is an artist, and I wanted him to be like, he's not going to be good. Like he's learning. And so I wanted it to be like, like this. And it was, we had so many complaints. People were like, what is it? First, it was huge. Like when it was first put in, it was massive. And so you'd have these like kind of emotional moments, and then like friggin' like Mel is staring at you in the background, or Manny, or like just take your pick. They're all really great. And people were like, is this the final? Is this what we're gonna go with? And I was like, yes. And eventually it was like, no, this is not what we're going to go with. It's too distracting, and it makes the scene way too funny to look at. But I'm bummed out. I think we could have made it work if we tried a little bit harder, but it's forever in my heart. One of the best things I'll ever do for a video game. Okay, so that was like the bulk of it. That's like most of what I did on obviously it's like there's way more examples of this. I was almost like overwhelmed with examples that I could show for what all this entails. But now we're into the final stretch. So like at this point we're trying not to make a bunch of more work for people. We're trying to help them finish the work and like polish it up and get it to the level of quality that is kind of consistent across the whole project. So at this point we're fine-tooth combing, we're going through and screenshotting, doing paint overs, and doing a lot of notes. So this was an asset that we got back for Dina for one of her outfits, one of her looks. And so it's as simple as I did a paint over in Photoshop to like add distressing. I like rotated these the texture up here. Did I just lie? I lied. I didn't do it for this one. Well, I wanted them to rotate it on the pockets. That's what it was. Adding like extra distressing around places like where you're going to touch the most, like things that are going to rub against something. A thing that drives me a little nuts, and if you're going to go into character concept specifically, just take heed when there's just holes in places that you wouldn't get holes. So we spent a lot of time thinking about where does clothing wear down? Like, where does it actually start to show wear, the fastest? And so it's places like edging, like anywhere where there's a seam or something sticks up at all, that's going to wear down a lot faster than just random places. And of course you can get holes randomly in shirts all the time, but wearing like this type of wear, like this what do you like, dulling, why is my brain so toasted? This stuff, seeing it kind of in random places is really, it kind of takes away from the realism of it. So we get right in there to the grain of this. We will look at like the pilling, like, you can't see this. There's like on shirts and stuff, there's like little pills that build up. Like we would go in and do stuff like detail the pilling out on things at this stage, and just give notes to like try to bump it one direction or the other. Stuff like this. I did a lot of like face work. I didn't want to show anything like violent or upsetting in this, because I don't want to subject people to that. It can be, I had to do like blood passes and stuff on faces, and I know that not everybody is down to look at that stuff. So I kept it, more kind. So Dina crying, it's still sad. Oh, poor Dina. But yeah, looking at providing them with different reference, to show them like, okay, we want a little bit more redness around the eyes. We want to like really sell, that her eyes are welling up and that she's crying, as well as we'll add little details like the scar and like redness around her face and like maybe a little bit of redness around her nose, stuff like that. I shared this on Twitter already, but grime passes. So Ellie's wearing the same stinky outfit for like all of Seattle. That girl stinks. Like everybody does for sure, but like she's so filthy by the end of it. So just doing the grime pass, she's like killing people and like crawling around in the mud and stuff. So she's gonna be real dirty. So this was like a grime pass from day one Seattle all the way to like final Ellie, just fully filthy girl Ellie. And same thing with her. Awesome. I love that element, the hoodie that she lifts up, just griming it up, putting some blood on it, making it feel like she's gross and has been living in it for a very long time now. Joel's jacket. We look at reference. I love eBay is like the best. If you need to find distressing reference, I'm giving away like my source, but it's fine. You can go on eBay and find like vintage jackets and stuff, and they're always like, what great reference is this? Look at all the gross dirt everywhere. He gets like some nice stain reference. Amazing. And so then this is actually, because we photo scan everything, we also take photos of it, like really high res photos, so that when it comes time to show like the colors that we want and the type of distressing, we do it right on top of the photos that we took. So it's like as realistic as we can get it for them to be like, yeah, do it kind of like this. Same thing with, this is the medical smock that Nora's wearing when she's treating Mel. So again, what did I look for this? It's before and after stain removal. I look at that a lot. Or like this is bleach stains, I think. So yeah, I'll look at that. I used this for the metal bit. It's obviously going to be rusty. It's been around for like a million years. Little potato. I loved him so much. He was so great to work on. So here's the texture that I made applied to him. So this is the 3D model. He's wearing the onesie with the texture I made. And then this is stuff like to add realism, like, he's going to sit on his little bum a lot. It's going to get dirty and it's going to dull there faster. It's going to dull through the, kind of universally, our stuff dulls on the shoulders more than anywhere else because it's going to hit the sun more on the shoulders. And then little dirts on his little footies and stuff. Because nothing's going to be like, we had to toe that line between like nothing's going to feel fully brand new and clean in this world. Everything's going to be slightly dull, slightly desaturated, a little bit dirty. But we don't want like, and when they're home, they don't need to be filthy. Like they don't need to be end of Seattle Ellie. They need to feel like they're cleaning stuff, like they're living a decent enough life. We'll do this thing where we'll go into the, I just kicked my router. If it disconnects, I'm gonna be so mad. We will go into the game and turn all the light off. So this is a base color, just to show what he looks like with no lighting applied to it. So we can see very quickly, like, this value is too dark. Let's get rid of that. The eye value was a little bit too dark too. So it's things like that that we can really see. Like, if you came to my values talk earlier, we sort of break it down on this base color level and then add distressing to the photos and everything to send back to character. Even stuff like adding little pimples on his face. Oh, tiny potato with your little baby pimples. Stuff like the eyebrows were a bit too thick for baby. He had really powerful eyebrows. So it's like, let's reduce those, make them feel more baby-like. Little notes like that. Ellie's sunburn. Oh, poor Ellie. Peeling skin, peeling lips, just getting real in there, getting all the details of like what someone looks like when they've just gone whole hog in Santa Barbara on a revenge quest. So that's kind of the whole thing. And then I'm going to quickly show you just these couple slides that show sort of beginning to end. So this was the very first design that I had done for Dina. And I'm not the only one working on Dina, like everybody works on everything. But the very first design I did for, what scene is this? This is the Seattle, no, this is winter. Did I pull the wrong thing? I think I pulled the wrong thing. But you know, we started off with like these in one direction, and then as the game progresses, we change through a variety of things to get to the final result. So obviously there's a lot of iteration, a lot of changing stuff. There's a lot of like revisiting. We don't just like, here's the concept and then that's it. It goes through just the meat grinder of changes and iteration and to get to somewhere where we're all happy with it. And this kind of shows, this was all for that dance scene stuff I did for the dance scene between Ellie and Dina. This was the story pitch image I did for it, which, what a nightmare on twitter.com, because I drew I have a big nose, by the way. I don't know if you can like see it. I have like a pretty big nose. So that was fun when Twitter was like, oh my God, you have a big nose. I was like, oh God, you just go outside, like have a juice box, take a nap, like look at a woman, maybe IRL, just, or don't actually, spare her. Don't look at women. So yeah, very first one I did was for the story pitch. Then I did this one, which I showed you earlier, which was like yeah, which is a little bit more femmy. Moved on to this direction where she's got jeans on, but she's got these like cowboy boots and everything. And then what we ended up with, our beautiful Dina with her red outfit or shirt thing. So yeah, it's a very long, very detail-oriented process to get from beginning to end. So yeah, that is my part of it. What time are we at? 3:49. I am going to pass this over to my special guest, who is Eytan Zana. He is an environment concept artist at Naughty Dog. So if you have time to stick around, he's amazing. He's been at Naughty Dog now for like, he'll tell you, I think it's 10 years. I think he's a decade dog now. So yeah, I'm going to turn me off. Oh my God, I can't find my mouse. And pass it over to him. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about the same stuff, but for environment concept.
Hello. Is this working? I hope this is working. Okay, cool. How's it going, guys? So I'm Eytan Zana. I've been an environment concept artist at Naughty Dog for 10 years. And Alex already really did a great job explaining the different phases of concept. And it's really similar for the environment sides. We have blue sky, production, and then we have the final stretch. So I'll take you through some of the concepts I did. And so a lot of these we're given a few kind of quick ideas about what the location should look like, similar to what an early path of a character might look like. We knew, this is a Scar village and everything they build is, it's going to be kind of frontier style, old log cabin stuff, very handmade, lots of wood. They're in nature, they're farming. So these are concepts from the blue sky phase that are really detailed to spell out like what we hope it could look like, what the end product should look like, and what we hope the environment team could match this sort of feeling, even if it's not specifically this exact image. So these are some of the more detailed blue sky images. So this is the bank where I think you get like an upgrade down here. This is like the Seattle arrival area. It's all overgrown, destroyed, that kind of thing. There's a lot of overgrown, destroyed. I shouldn't say that. It's not a great. That doesn't help describe what I'm talking about. But so we're just looking at helping the environment team out as much as possible. Like, what colors should the textures be? What's the placement of the trees? In this one, you're emerging out of a forest to see this hotel. So how can we guide the player towards something interesting, right? So we'll put like a bunch of trees on the left or right so that you kind of don't notice that. And then the different thing is in the middle. So there's a hotel sticking out of this forest. We have a cave down here. This is, on the way down to the bank lobby. These are some more areas around Seattle, like there's like a waterfall. These are, I think, trucks in the end of the game, but look at one of the checkpoints for the WLF. And here's some different ideas for the building that Abby and Lev go down into. This is like the destroyed, infected building. My favorite part of the whole game. This was like so fun. So here it was just trying to get this sense because Abby has trouble with heights. So really playing up like to make this place as scary as possible, like super vertical, like this endless drop down an elevator shaft, basically. And just as much as possible, we're playing with shape language to get the character to feel scared, because this is like full of infected. This is a very dangerous part of the game. So we're using lots of like spiky shapes. There's nothing round or comforting about this level in any way, right? And even the colors are kind of like desaturated and spooky. We don't want this to be confused that this is the time to take a break. You're supposed to be sweating and like really freaking out. I also did some concepts for what the main menu would look like. So these were like different ideas. This ended up getting in pretty easily. That was pretty fun. But just, you weren't supposed to know what the significance of this boat was until you got to the end of the game. And then when you beat the game, you would be greeted with this as the new, background to the main menu, which I thought was pretty cool. So this is a shot of the post office in Jackson. So it's like early on in the game with Dina. And this is, again, like I'm taking the time to say like, this is what the texture of the floor would look like, like really getting in there. This is what snow and wet and like old wood would look like, and what level of snow is going to get in here, and what's I'm trying to put the snow just where the source is, where the window is open on the right, so there's only going to be snow over there, and it's going to be relatively just kind of wet and old everywhere else. So really paying attention to like the materials and the lighting and the shape language to get the idea across. We have some more spooky Jackson stuff. I think this is where you fight like your first clickers. So I had this idea that maybe one of these clickers died and he just kind of collapsed here, and all the infected stuff kind of grew out from around him. So a lot of times we're not given any specific direction other than like show us what a snowy infected interior might look like, but it's up to you to kind of put your spin on it, put your imagination to work, and think about what would be fun for a player to notice. Like, it's cool to have just infected stuff everywhere, sure, but what if we could like apply some sort of logic to the way the infected stuff is laid out? So maybe there's like a source from it and it all kind of spills out from that. This was another look. I don't think this, got used specifically in the game, but this is just an idea for what could it look like if infected stuff completely grew over a house and then the snow came in and kind of froze it. So it's like this hard kind of calloused rock everywhere. That's totally like, I was looking at, I think, the, what's it called? Termite stuff, how termites get into the layers of a wall or a ceiling and stuff like that. You're looking at a lot of like horrible photos of people's entire houses like flooded and all that kind of fun stuff. Here's another shot from the E3 trailer that we put out. So this is like telling the lighting artists how to, decide how much of this firelight is coming from the left versus how much of that blue, cool, rainy Seattle light is going to spill into here. Really paying attention to what the materials look like, where the overgrowth is, what shape even the overgrowth makes to guide the player. Another shot from, I don't remember the name of this in the game, like Hillcrest area, but this was just an example for what they could do with how to overgrow an interior. So again, I'm thinking about where's the source of the overgrowth coming from mostly. So I had these windows were left open. So the ivy is going to kind of creep in through there. There's going to be grass and moss and stuff more towards where the light is, because that's how plants grow. And I noticed from looking at photos, ivy really likes hugging onto like corners and vertical beams and stuff. So everywhere close to the light source where I could find some little patch that the ivy could crawl up, I made sure to get that in there. But it's not just overgrowth everywhere. You're trying to really think about the logic of what would happen if something was left alone for like 20 plus years. This was an earlier shot of the collapsed building with Abby, and just my direction really was just go like fucking nuts. Like, what if this thing is complete? It's almost like a cavern now. There's barely building left. There's so much infected destruction that's happened. So we're looking at a lot of cave formations and rocks as an idea for what the infected stuff could look like. So it is. I'm actually using photos from a trip I took to the biggest cave in the world called Sondung Cave. So I used a lot of things from my own like vacation for this floor, like all this gross, wet, stone-looking infected stuff. Here's some more shots of Jackson. Again, not a one-for-one for the game, but more overall just what's it going to feel like to go down a street where there's so much snow for 20 years that it's just like no one's gone through there and cleaned it up, right? It's just like built up to the sides of these buildings. And maybe, I'm hinting at gameplay, like maybe you could kind of walk up these snowbanks to get into a window. So you're maybe entering the level from like the second story of a building, which I think is kind of cool. And then you like drop down inside of it. This was a shot for the downtown like shopping mall area of Seattle. And this one I actually just used, I went to Google Maps and I found the exact shot. I just took a screenshot from Google Maps and then like worked on top of it, because this was one of the earliest things we did for the project. So there was no, layout from the 3D team or anything like that. We just had some photo reference trips that we took in Google Maps. So you're going to use what you can, I'm not going to hand draw this place exactly. I'm just going to do what gets the job done. Took a screenshot from Google Maps and then put all this vegetation and destruction on top of it. Some more rapids areas. This was really fun. This was also a Google Maps screenshot, but I completely destroyed everything that was in there. So this was, what if this water has just been pouring through here for over a decade? What kind of level of moss and overgrowth would we see? Another shot. A lot of these I don't have like a fun descriptor. It's like just destroyed and overgrown Seattle. that's the level. But just trying to think about, if you were to look at this and you were playing the game, how would you know where to go? So I'm trying to block off paths with trees and cars that you can't go, and I'm trying to create shapes and angles. So like in this, you would be following this kind of concrete street, because it's
charging battery.
Through contrast, it's popping out. So you would notice that and kind of understand, oh, that's where I'm supposed to go. I'll follow this little path up here and get through over there. So that's sort of the fun, sexy stuff. But a lot of what we do is what Alex was showing is these call-out notes of just using your artistic knowledge to go around the game, taking screenshots and seeing, how can I fix this? How can I make this prettier? So it's like art direction, but on a very small level. So here I'm just noticing, the overgrowth here is just like very straight. It looks good, but I'm thinking more about the arrangement of it. How can we make this a little bit more interesting? I don't like straight lines, and in nature, stuff rarely grows in a straight line. So I'm kind of making this diagram. It's straight, and they're all kind of the same clumps, small, 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 small. So I would do like a quick note paint over and think about, could we have like one humongous clump of it, and then it tapers down and then it goes back up. So you have some small, medium, and large, just with the arrangement of the bushes. And we'll do a lot of these notes. Over a year of notes, just going through levels and seeing, how can I make this as cool as possible, like with what we have. So I'm trying to keep the layout roughly the same, the placement of the trees roughly the same, but my job is to make it as awesome as possible so that the modelers know what to do. They have a more specific direction, even the lighting, everything like that is up for grabs. Just keep the gameplay the same, but can I make it really, really pretty?
Charging battery.
And a lot of this is like really simple. Like, I just didn't like this chain link fence. I just think it looked not that great. It's creating a lot of noise. There's a lot of these like lines with a bunch of busy trees behind it. You're not even supposed to go this way. So it just looks visually like it's popping out way too much. So I might just fly around in the game and say like, oh, I like this asset. Can we just put this asset here? And I'll do, a very quick half an hour thing where I'm just kind of screenshotting that and transforming it over there. Oh, doesn't that look better? That kind of simplifies it now. It's not so busy. It's not so much going on over there. But you're doing that over and over and over, just trying to make the game look cool. Might have like, on the bottom, this was temporary. It wasn't going to be these like purple lights, but they wanted to figure out some way to warm the space up, make it feel really cozy. So I would just take, grab photos of like Chinese lanterns and fire pits and stuff that feels really cozy and warm, color change on that. Or even saying, I went into the game and I like moved the sunlight, and here's a screenshot so that the lighter could know, here's the position that I moved the sunlight, just to help them out. And a lot of times it's not like a painting, it's not like amazing art, it's just like whatever gets the job done. I'm taking a photo of a sun-bleached chair, I took a screenshot of a flower that we already have, and I'm just saying, put the flowers in this shot, and please rotate the light like this, because I think it looks better. And a lot of times we are, doing awesome like online shopping. I'm just looking at my dream home basically, and seeing what are the colors that would be cool for a random, abandoned building in this level. I'm trying to give it some flair, some character. So I'm trying to do some research and think about, what would someone have in their home? Like what type of furniture, colors. I really like this horizontal shiplap that I saw in this photo. So I'm thinking, let's put that there. Let's put, this type color dresser here for this bookshelf. Or a lot of times we'll get a very simple block mesh. So this is what it looks like when they're just trying to figure out if the game is fun. So they're just making it in very simple blocks and rectangles just to get the flow of the game right. But they needed help making it look convincing, because in the game you're supposed to hop over this fence. So a lot of what I do is just researching, what's a real broken fence look like? Do we have something like that in the game? Luckily we did. We already had a fence prototype. So I'm like, please use this fence, make it look like that. And then I would do a quick painting of what that could look like on top. So I just wanted to make it very clear. There's a bunch of overgrowth on the right and the left. You can't climb over it that way. And the one area where there's no overgrowth, it's clear to the player. That's where I can hop over. I think this got cut eventually, but I wanted to work on this area. You're supposed to like kick this dumpster down, and it's basically like a little shortcut. But it was just like really uninteresting that there was a chain link fence out of nowhere, like sticking out of this alley. It didn't really feel that great to me. So I was suggesting, rather than having a physical blocker, a physical wall, like let's make a wall out of the props that would be in this world. Let's have a wall of abandoned cars and overgrowth and stuff like that. And even using the concrete and the grass to like make a little swoosh so your eye kind of follows that shiny pavement towards the area of interest, which is look at this dumpster. Like everything that I'm putting in this paint over is pointing you towards what I want you to look at, which is the dumpster. Another example here, like this is supposed to be like a sinkhole where the street has collapsed, but I just didn't think it looked that great. Again, like straight line, I don't like that. Automatically get rid of that. And I really didn't like how the bushes were laid out here. It really didn't feel like they would have grown that way. So I'm trying to think of, what would be fun here. So it's a sinkhole, but it's raining all the time. So maybe it's grabbing all the mud and debris from the city and just kind of flooding it into this gross little muddy pit. And instead of using bushes here, because they're trying not to get the player to jump that way, they're blocking them with bushes. I'm thinking, well, instead of that, why don't we just have like a bigger gap here, or like pieces of the asphalt are creating shapes that the player cannot jump on. Just try to make it more interesting, make it look a little bit more believable. Again, this all goes back to just looking at tons and tons of reference of these things, of real sinkholes and destroyed cities and stuff like that. And kind of like what Alex was doing for a few spaces, we got to do some branding for some areas in the game. So this was a shop that looked like this in the beginning. It was just a nondescript little store, but they wanted to give it some character. And this is what the inside looked like. It was some shelves and a desk. Nothing crazy to go off of. So I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if it was like a little paper store, give it some pops of color as contrast to this weird apocalypse grim world. For a second you walk in this store and it's like filled with bright color and papers and like, little paper sculptures and birds on the wall and stuff like that. So a lot of the time it's really up to you to think about what would be cool. I'm not getting any specific direction here. It's just on me to go out and like think of something, get excited, and really start digging into the reference. What would be part of this world? What does a real paper store look like? And what are the elements that I could grab and use that for this? Like I really liked all these hanging stars that they had, and here's where I got the idea for the birds on the wall and like little paper circles, all these fun patterns and stuff. So that all came together with, this was like a longer paint over, but I thought it needed that. And a lot of the time I'm just going through and pointing out things that are not reading that well. So if you look here at this one, it's like a laundromat, but there's so much noise, there's so much detail in the texture that I'm kind of losing what the sign is. When I squint my eyes at it, the sign kind of blends in with the wall. So I'll even show that in black and white. I'll kind of take it in black and white and do a cutout filter on it. And I'm like, see, you can't really see what's going on. Like all these textures are so detailed that they're competing with each other. So this one is just cleaning it up, right? Just deciding like, oh, the wall is going to be this darker color. The logo is going to be brighter so that it pops out a little bit more. It's really like minute changes like that, but I think it helps a lot when you're walking through and everything's very clear where you can and can't go. And yeah, sometimes we do all sorts of random stuff. Like I did the trophy icons for a lot of our games, actually. I just have fun doing those. Um, these a lot of these the little icons were done by our UX artist Maria Capel, but it was my job to kind of arrange them and try and think about, based on what the designers wanted the achievement to be, to think about how I could express that. So it's like totally different. This is just graphic design stuff. This is not environment concept art at all, but sometimes you get called to do things that you were not expecting to do. And here we have, these are like kind of in between. These are like cinematic concepts. So a lot of this is just about what the lighting is and where the characters could be, like where the frame would be. So we have Abby and Lev riding away from the village. This is a shot, before something really bad happens. I'll say that. But my job was really to just relight the scene. So I took the already finished level and then I redid all the textures and I did all the lighting again, but just in a 3D program. So there's no painting here. I'm just like fixing it according to my taste. Like I wanted the windows to look that certain way where they're frosted over and really snowy. And I wanted that warm light coming from the left to really pop out Ellie's head and really act as a focal point, because Ellie turns towards the direction of the light. So I wanted to have this light, this ominous light coming from the left versus the harsh snow outside. So it's not always going to be like making a painting. Sometimes I'm literally just grabbing a 3D file, redoing it. Another one for the aquarium. This is like, I think without those Chinese lanterns, but this is just an idea for the aquarium where it's colder outside and someone has made a fire pit in here. And so, yeah, sometimes I'm taking like terrible, these are like free 3D models of people, and I'm just posing them quickly and lighting the scene. It's not really about having like a crazy polished like keyframe. It's just I'm going into 3D, arranging the characters according to like rules of composition and looking at a lot of frames of movies and just showing this as, what do I think the lighting should be, right? Because this is a dark moment for Ellie. So I thought it would be interesting if she was not getting hit by the light. So she's completely in dark. She's in shadow. This is a dark moment for her character. And the other characters are, in this context, relatively good. And they're like, please don't shoot us. So they're going to be hit by the light. They're like the innocent bystanders in this situation. Or another one, just Ellie and Dina looking at a map, I think, in the early Seattle arrival area. But I'm just taking photos of Nancy again and another model of Ellie, and just quickly bashing them into like a street photo that I found from Seattle and adding some overgrowth. But it's mostly just about how can we silhouette the characters in an interesting way? What's like a cool type of lighting to have in this scenario where they're all backlit, they're in an alley, and it's just kind of ambient light that's lighting the scene. Same thing here. So we have Ellie outside the theater and it's raining, and just looking at a lot of films that have a similar vibe. So I was looking at Matrix 1, where he gets into the car he gets the thing, I don't know how to explain that thing taken out of his stomach in the limo, but it's all raining in the tunnel. So we were looking at that for this shot. But yeah, I think that's all I got. That's the gist of it. That's the job. It's a little bit of everything.
Amazing. So I'm going to switch to both of us now. Okay, see, yeah, I have to change it again. Just
okay, no
hold
worries.
tight, Eytan, because
I'm not going to show anything on my screen. I'll just focus on some art.
I had set this all up. I swear. How do I do this? Why is this? Do I have to like move this around the whole screen until I find this? What? is happening to me? What is my life?
I can't answer that.
Oh my God. Okay. Found you. This is like a fun little game. It's like a playing an extremely stressful game and Twitch streaming it. It's, I guess what Twitch was made for. Okay. There's Eytan's face. Okay, so just full disclosure, when we first loaded you up, it was just all a mess. Like your screen was like huge and it just didn't.
Oh,
I had to rearrange
cool.
everything, but we got it worked out. So yeah, now we're gonna answer some questions together. And I figure I did see in the chat there's some questions for Eytan and questions for me, I'm sure, from earlier. So we're just gonna go like back and forth. I think it's probably the easiest way. And I'm sure there's questions that we can both answer together. Okay, so I have a separate message one for me. So we'll start with some of these Eytan ones. Actually, Eytan, in the chat on Discord, you can read your questions. So if you want to start with the ones you want to do, and I'll start with the ones that I'm gonna answer, which are separate.
Okay, let me catch up on the Twitch chat.
I'm just gonna bust open mine. Okay, so I'll start with one of mine first. Does it matter if story beats are black and white or fully colored in? Is it okay to do a story beat illustration in black and white or sketchier than usual? Yes, they don't have to be color at all. In fact, at that point, we're still trying to figure out what like the color script is for the game. We don't know any of that stuff. So it's actually a little bit better to just keep them really simple. Black and white sketches makes it a lot easier on everybody. So yes, you could do them color. I don't think there's anything stopping anybody from doing them in color, but we tend to do them in black and white. So then, Eytan, do you want to answer one of your cues?
Yeah, so a few people were asking what the process is. Is it a mixture of 3D and 2D? It definitely is, especially for this project. The level of realism we were trying to go for, we really, really pushed how polished our scenes were in 3D. We did a lot of 3D to start with. We would take what the level designers had, like the simple block mesh, and we would work on top of that and get a really nice render to begin with. And then we would do our normal like paint mixture with photo textures on top of it. But we were starting from a really like highly polished render for most of it. And that was just because we wanted the finished concepts to look like super real, super cinematic as much as we could to like be a really good bar for the environment team to fill it in.
Sweet. By the way, your presentation was really good. Very nice job.
Oh, thanks. It's nerve-wracking.
Isn't it? It's like, oh my God, what if I say the wrong thing? I hate it.
And it's silent, so I don't know if it's broken and people are messaging me. I know. I don't know.
Yeah, you're just lost. That's C. Okay, so I got one. Do you remember the exact moment you want to be a concept artist? How did you choose your career path? There's so many questions. What was your favorite part of working on the game? Stuff about women in you asked like 10 questions at once. Okay, so I'm going to answer the first one. When I wanted to be a concept artist. I actually wanted to be one from the beginning. So I've worked in games for 13 years and I wanted to be a concept artist 13 years ago, like 2007 or whatever it was. And I just didn't think I was cut out for it. My work didn't look like everyone else's work. And I kind of gave up on it. By the time I had come to Naughty Dog, I was content doing UI. I actually still love parts of UI. I showed you graphic design stuff. I still really like doing that. But I was like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work out. I just don't have what it takes, I guess. I don't know. But John, my fiance, who is now the art director of The Last of Us, and Ashley and Eytan and all these people really supported me and were like, you should keep going for this. Like, you should keep trying. And Neil Druckmann also supported me a lot in it. So that kind of built up my confidence to be like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. So I tried during Uncharted 4 to just do a couple little things. I think the first official assignment I did was like Cassie Drake's outfit, Nathan Drake's kid. And then from there, Neil and Ashley would just give me a couple more assignments every now and again. And that slowly snowballed into me doing it full time. But it took quite a bit of time for me to transfer over. It's hard to go from being the sole first UI designer at the company who they very much needed to continue to do UI to a concept artist, which they didn't necessarily need at the time. But we hired on a wonderful UI designer who has done like more than filled the necessary role. Her name is Maria. And that was able to kind of help me push into concept. So yeah.
Cool. Someone was asking, how do you, put storytelling into your environment? And I think that's a great question, because that's everything that I try to do when I'm starting an environment is, what's the story? What is the point of the image, right? So like, what do I want you to look at as a viewer? What do I want you to notice? So is it an upbeat thing? Is it a downbeat thing? That's going to decide what the colors are, what type of lighting, right? If it's spooky, that's going to have different lighting than if it's a happy, day in a park type of thing. And if it's scary, it's going to have certain shapes, like I was showing with the descent images. It's lots of sharp angles, and it makes it feel like you're going to die if you're in this environment, versus a happy environment might have lots of round, soft shapes and textures and colors that go along with that. So everything has to stem from the beginning of what is the story. And then from there, we decide shapes, composition, color, everything has to all point and reiterate what that point of the image is.
Nice. I have a few of the same question, which is about portfolio. Like, what do companies look for when hiring for this role? So what we look for, as you could see, is an attention to detail, first and foremost, and an attention to detail specifically with contemporary costuming. So we look at a lot of portfolios that are like very fantasy based and very kind of like, they're not grounded in realism, which is what all of our current IPs are. And so it's important to us to know that somebody's going to be interested in continuing to work on this, because as fun as it is to like flip through all this right now, this is a 6 to 7 years of production. And you are very looking at the grain on denim for a very long time. And you have to really kind of care about that level of detail. We also care a lot about narrative and storytelling. We are story-based games. So with the costuming that you show, we need to see that you're thinking through why. Like, why is somebody wearing this stuff? It can't just be for decoration. Nothing we do is for decoration. As I showed you and as Eytan showed you, we think through like every aspect of these characters and these environments, down to like what type of sand is on the ground, or what, again, the pilling on a shirt. So yeah, we need to see that people are thinking about why they're making a character look a certain way. And for me, when I look at a portfolio with character stuff in it, I really like to see that they've kind of built a narrative around the characters. It's not necessarily just like T-posed characters, that they're like trying to build a story with their paintings as well. That usually helps. So showing that you're interested in contemporary costuming, because it is very different than doing fantasy stuff or sci-fi stuff or any of that stuff. And I usually tell people too, like, I know it's hard for students right now because you're applying for like multiple different places and they all have different requirements. But when I am applying for work, I use different portfolios for different things. So I have a children's book portfolio, which is obviously very different from my character concept art portfolio, which sometimes has some sort of like, it's a very adult game, I guess, very mature game. So yeah, I have separate portfolios for things. And so I recommend that you like really look into what the companies you're applying for are looking for, and that you cater your portfolio to that as much as you can within reason. Because I'm not saying like go make a ton of new pieces per portfolio. It's actually a good way to think if you are a fit. If you're like, I'm going to make a portfolio for this company and it's a slog for you and you're like, I don't want to do anything from this. And it's like, okay, you probably don't want to work there. You probably don't want to do that type of work. So yeah, I hope that answered that question a little bit. Eytan, do you want to add to that? That's like a big one.
Yeah, it's the same thing for environments. It is about the attention to detail and what I was saying before. Can you get across an emotion from an image? Especially in an environment when we don't have the benefit of seeing a character's face reacting to something. How do you make an environment that's spooky? How do you make an environment that's happy? Every kind of emotion that you would have throughout the story beats of a game, we're going to have to do something like that eventually. So if you could show through your portfolio you have an excellent eye for that, of composition and really great mastery of attention to detail, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like photoreal like what you're seeing. It just has to get across those things of, you know, can you make an image that it's really focused on one thing, it's highly polished, it looks the way you imagined it to look, and it feels the mood that you were trying to go for.
Yeah, I think that we're all like very in every aspect of Naughty Dog. Because someone asked, "Is it the same for 3D?" Like, yeah, we want to see attention to detail, and you can see that in the games that we make. Like, you want to match that quality. I usually also tell people to look at the portfolios of people in those roles and like have an honest conversation with yourself. Like, am I there? Like, am I, do I feel like I'm on par with this person's work? Because that's an easy way to kind of gauge for yourself like where you're at and how you should be focusing your time and attention on improvement. I will also say that a lot of the times you're looking at portfolios that are kind of outdated. Like, people have grown quite a bit since then, but try not to worry too much about that. Just think about like getting yourself up to a comparable quality level. Like, you could see your work fitting in with the artists that already work there, and that applies for anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't necessarily need to be art that's from the Last of Us universe to get Naughty Dog interested. It's really just about like, can you match something that would be in the world of a game we might make one day, right? A Naughty Dog style game. We make a certain type of game, and if you look at the portfolios of people that work there, you can see what their personal work and their professional work looks like, and judge yourself based on that. Does your work look like it could fit into the next Naughty Dog game?
Wait, is it my go or is it your go? I lost track.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, there's a few kind of similar questions about like, they notice there's a lot of, I'm just going to cover a couple of these. There's like a lot of concept art titles. I do character stuff, Eytan does environment. They are explicitly listed as character concept art and environment concept art. I think we only have character concept art open right now, but if you see things like game design or like character artists, those are not concept art. It is explicitly a concept art position, so that's what you want to be on the lookout for. Unless you're looking this is maybe one of the most frustrating things for students. There's like no standardization with games. Like, all the stuff that we just told you, it might not be this way somewhere else. So I think most companies explicitly ask for concept art, but if you're unsure, reach out to somebody at the company, their HR person or something, and just ask them. Like, instead of just submitting, because then you're going to just get lost in a pile, just ask. Be like, is this a concept art role? Do you want to ask? Yeah, I'll still read.
Yeah. Somebody asked how long we spend on concepts. So it totally depends. For the finished Blue Sky ones, we had about, I would say, minimum 2 days. And at the most, we'd probably have a week to work on them, because the goal of them was to really, really spell out what the game is going to look like. So it was understood that we're going to need time to make something that polished, because there's detail everywhere, and you're trying to like balance so many different elements in one shot. So we usually had a lot longer on those, versus the notes. It didn't have to be good. It's not put in the art book or anything like that. This is the only time I've showed those things. So it's just quick, 3 or 4 notes a day, just like kind of rattling them off. And what was the other thing I showed? The cinematic stuff, same thing, probably like 1 to 3 a day, because we're just taking really simple compositions and showing them what the lighting should look like. It didn't need to be spelled out or detailed that much.
Yeah, it's the same for all the stuff that I showed too. Like, if it's a painting, it took like usually between 1 and 3 days for the more elaborate ones. And then notes take me like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on the complexity. Like, I'm really thinking through like the Ellie's room stuff. I'll sit there and think about that forever. Like, maybe she would have this, and I'll add to it and stuff. So I take a few more days on those, but the stuff like the museum stuff, I will literally, in front of like a designer come by, I'll draw it out and send it to them, be like, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, how many character designers would be hired for a game? So we had four on Last of Us 2 that were in-house. That was myself, the lead, Ashley Swadowski, Hyung Nam, who I highly recommend looking him up. He's also like a decade dog. He's been there 10 years, and he's incredible. And most character concept artist work you would have seen from Last of Us 1 is Hyung. He designed the initial Ellie and Joel designs. And then Richard Lyons. And we also outsourced. So we had Winona Nelson worked for us. Minju Helen Chen did some character work for us. Saskia, I'm going to say her, Gutenkunst, I think is her last name. She did some work for us as well. So we do, during especially the early stuff, the Blue Sky, where we had a ton of story images to do, we contracted some freelancers to help us out. And you can see their work on their social medias. All of them have the work posted that they did. It's all super cool. It's really fun to see all the different styles for that stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. Someone asked what I wish I knew as a student, or what I would recommend to a student, and I think there's got to be an emphasis on drawing and painting foundations. Just really great mastery of perspective, understanding composition, understanding lighting. Just really hammer in those foundations, because at the moment it's full of there's all these 3D programs out there right now that are really, really enticing, really fun things to use, but you'll be completely lost unless you have the foundational skills. You have to have trained your eye in order to use these tools correctly. And I think especially with what you were seeing me do with the notes, it's not necessarily that I'm like drawing a bunch of leaves over it. I'm using my eye to decide, based on my foundational learning, oh, this cluster of bushes needs small, medium, and large. And that's not something you're going to get from doing anything in 3D. That's just like a basic foundational drawing and painting type of thing.
Yeah, it's the exact same for us. Like, it's the same.
Yeah, the tools are great, but yeah, focus on the foundation stuff.
Yeah. When talking about game projects, how is the timeline decided for character design? As in, how much time is allotted usually for each character? Oh, and it scrolls. And how much ideation is required. This really depends on the character and how much time you're going to see them on the screen. So each of those characters, like Ellie and Dina, for instance, they each have multiple costume swaps and multiple hair swaps. And so they're going to get, they're our main characters plus Abby, they're going to get worked on and designed for the entire production. We'll be polishing them right up to the end. Characters, like I showed you, a concept of Leah, who's one of the WLF members, way less time. We still spend a lot of time on her, but you only see her like in the bad moment, briefly in the background, and then you see her dead later. So we don't need to spend as much time on her. So she's going to get considerably less time. And as I mentioned previously, like, it also depends on timing. Like if we have a outward facing deadline that's coming up, like a demo or a trailer, whoever's in that gets attention right then and has to be kind of polished and finished for that look for right then. So it really depends on the character. The longest are the whole production, the shortest a few months. Not really. That's a lie. It's more than a few months because we keep coming back to them. They all just take forever. We're working on characters
They take the
forever.
whole project.
Yeah, the whole project, beginning to end, because stuff will change and beginning to end with them.
Cool. Somebody asked, do you have any tips for people who are looking to get into lighting, what to focus on, what to accentuate? I think there's a few things. The first and the most important is reference. So looking at stills from movies, and especially going outside and looking at lighting conditions throughout the day. Look at an overcast day, sunset, a bright shining day, and really just don't take pictures. Just look and think about what's happening. Notice what the color of the light is, what the color of the shadow is, how strong is the ambient light, how strong are the contact shadows. And when you're looking at movie stills, I think a great thing to practice if you are doing lighting in 3D is try to replicate a lighting situation from a cool movie still that you found. You know, there's plenty of websites out there that take screenshots from awesome movies. So try and get one and match it as close as possible in 3D to a really cool reference where somebody already figured out the lighting. And on top of that, you can look at what lighters on film sets, how they actually set up their lights in the physical space and try to replicate that in 3D, where to put your main light source and your bounce cards and all that sort of thing. That knowledge is out there for free. All you would have to do is just look at it and try and copy it in 3D.
Yep. Very quickly, someone asked about photo bashing versus painting for concept. So I use very little photo bashing, but I will like take my own photo reference and trace over stuff if I need to. That's, you know, part of my process, and I gotta get stuff done. So yeah, I tend to paint stuff more because it's just this, again, like as we talked about, like the character stuff doesn't have to be a one-to-one, so we do get to do that a little bit, which is fun. So I do take the opportunity because I love painting. I don't use a lot of photo bashing, but I will, like all the notes are just photos like that I've painted on top of. So it depends on the production, like the time in production. If we're getting to the end, it's going to be almost entirely photo bashing. If it's the beginning, it's mostly just painting and drawing and stuff.
I think that's the end of my questions.
Okay, there's some of these that you can answer as well because they're just, for character design, concept portfolio, do you only want blue sky work or should also try to dive deeper and add production work? Eytan, this is like a good conversation thing because I feel like it's good to show production work. There's certain production work that I don't necessarily find super valuable, like the silhouettes, which is a very common thing that people show all the time. The type of work we do is like very grounded. It's like jeans and shirts. Like you're not gonna get much out of silhouettes. It's not quite like animated stuff or even fantasy stuff. It's I don't necessarily feel that those add much to a person's portfolio. That is a personal take. That's not necessarily, don't go ahead and like pull that all out and be like, they don't want this in portfolios. It's just, I don't necessarily see the value in seeing those. But yeah, I think that's showing some of this production work would go a long way to show that you're paying attention to details, but I want to know what you think from an environment standpoint.
Yeah, I think a thing I run into a lot is I see portfolios where they're just showing me everything they've ever done. And I think it gets people into a lot of hot water later because they're getting hired to do a thing they never wanted to do because they put it in their portfolio. So they wanted to be a character designer, and then at the end of their portfolio, they showed a bunch of, branding design and stuff like that, like you were showing, but they didn't want to do it. It was just, maybe a school assignment, and then they're going to get hired and do that and kind of be kicking themselves. So I would say whatever you are putting in your portfolio, be passionate about that. Put stuff that you actually care about. So if it is in terms of environments, like designs of props is really cool. Like the design of the environment, if you're thinking about a world like Uncharted, right? And you're designing some crazy temple entrance or something, show us how you thought about that, what architecture you were looking at, and all the pieces that made up that cool environment. And then you can show that cool, sexy, finished painting. But it's cool to see the thought that went into it as well, because that should be something that goes hand in hand. That should be something you're interested in exploring. It doesn't necessarily just have to be stuff that you did that is concept art.
Yes, I agree with all that. It's very like, I think some people want to feel like, oh, I can do a lot of stuff, I want to show them everything, and it only ends up hurting you in the end if you really don't want to do that stuff. Because if you can do graphic design and UI stuff, you're going to get asked to do graphic design and UI stuff. They're harder positions to fill than concept art. All right. In this case, you had real life models for the 3D model characters. Were the models chosen before the concept and you had to work based on their likeness, or were they chosen once the design was made? It's both. So sometimes we already had somebody cast and it was just sort of designed around that. Sometimes Neil had a pretty specific vision. Like, so for Dina, he had like kind of an idea in mind of what he wanted pretty early on. So we at least had a direction. For some of them, we would pitch stuff. Ashley would go through like casting notes and or casting calls we had sent out and like kind of pick out some individuals that we could use. So it really depends on the character. But we've done both of those things. Uh, our concept art is only involved in the beginning brainstorming part of the game. Like once everything is planned out, what do the 2D artists do? Um, yeah, we kind of covered that. We do notes and we do all sorts of stuff. Uh, how do you scan a horse? We didn't scan the horse. We did mocap on the horse, which one of our Jeremy Yates on Twitter is our animation lead, and he one of the animation leads, and he showed all the mocap. They put like the dots and stuff on them and like jump them over things and stuff. We do get mocap data on the horses. Does the art director create all the vision boards up front so the differences can be tuned, or they created one at a time through production? Ashley created a lot of them up front. John actually did a lot of John's. I'm looking over here because he's sitting over here. He lives in my house. We share this house together. But he would do. You know what? I need to run to the bathroom. John can answer the question for you. He's not going to. Eytan, you answer the question. I'm running to the bathroom.
Was the question about mood boards? I think it was about mood boards. Yeah, so John had a lot of film reference for us to look at. And in fact, when we first looked at our color script, which is, what colors belong in each level, he had grabbed already all these different scenes from movies that we were trying to, get the general vibe of. And then as we did paintings, he kind of replaced those screenshots from movies with our paintings. But for a lot of it, was looking at like Roger Deakins movies and like, stills from Skyfall and like The Rover and all these kind of gritty action movies. There was a lot of, what was that? Sicario was referenced a lot for the WLF, and there was Winter's Bone for Jackson, I think. There were so many films. John's an encyclopedia of film, so he'd be good to answer this question. Oh, Alex is back from the bathroom.
I've been sitting here drinking iced tea, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta pee.
Oh no.
John was like, no, he's in the middle of a game. He was like, no, I will not.
He's busy.
I will not answer this question. I'm so sorry. Thank you for your patience with me. Do you use 3D? How often? He's playing COD. Is that what you're playing? Are you playing COD?
Of course he's playing COD.
Yeah, he's playing War Boy, as I call it. It's called Warzone, but Gun Boy. He's playing Gun Boy game.
Gun Boy.
He loves it. Do I use 3D and how often? I use 3D all the time if I'm doing environments. I don't use it for characters because I have no idea how to use ZBrush, and I am stubborn and I'm never going to learn it because it's so complicated and confusing. I will learn it one day.
Yeah, I hate ZBrush.
It sucks. Okay, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to yell about ZBrush. They call like the thing you're modeling a tool. From a UI perspective, like we have words already that we use. We use words in a certain way. Why? It's so confusing. Why do you have to be so difficult, ZBrush? They're like the cool kid that's being different just for the sake of it. I can't handle it. End of rant.
Yeah, I think 3D is like really awesome, and I love learning all the programs and tools and stuff. But I have tried to learn ZBrush like 3 times. I'm done with it. I've used 3D Coat now for like 4 years. I'm totally on 3D Coat train. It's so much easier.
Yeah, and you use 3D a lot for your work, right? Like you always are painting over 3D.
Yeah, so 3D Coat's really cool because you can kind of sculpt things by hand. So I'm making pieces of the environment, but I'm not really like technically modeling them, like poly modeling. I'm just sculpting little objects and then I'm arranging them in a 3D program. So it feels really cool to me because I'm like hand making the environment and using 3D to get the lighting on it. Yeah, it's called 3D Coat.
Going into this industry, is having a cartoon-like style or ability to illustrate in multiple styles more useful, or is a consistent style? There is not a right answer to that. Like, if you can work in multiple styles, like Eytan said, as long as you want to work in multiple styles, because you might not want to actually do that all the time, that's great. People will, I'm sure, find a place for you the same way they found a place for me. Eytan doesn't necessarily do although you do some stylized work, but you tend to have a pretty consistent style. So I thought Eytan was a really good example to bring in because he is on that like more realistic, sort of what you most likely imagine when you think of concept art. So there is a place for both of us still in this world. obviously. And so no, there is no right answer to that. Just be the best you can at the stuff. Do you want to add to that, Eytan? Do you have feelings?
I have feelings
Good.
sometimes.
I'm glad.
Uh, yeah, somebody was asking, like what to put in their concept art portfolio. So I think that maybe goes well with that. I do personally like seeing when people are showing paintings and studies in addition, like there is a range that they are working on, but it is all towards the same goal. Like their studies have a focus on really nice lighting and shape design, even if they're 3D heavy concepts. I want to see that carry over. I want to see those choices carrying over into 3D. You're not just using like really mushy 3D prototypes that you found. You are using your eye to create a nice scene and show us, what you're thinking about. Do you have those, like I was talking about before, architectural sketches and the brainstorm designs before you do the polished stuff, all those painting studies. I think that's super important. It makes you better at using the tools when you don't use the tools.
Yeah, I agree. Is outsourcing the work they send to people they hired from outside of Naughty Dog? So yeah, outsourcing means like we just don't have the manpower internally to do a project of this size. It's massive. So we employ a few different outsourced studios. One of them is actually in San Diego. They're all over the place. And we also outsource individuals. So like if there's individual concept artists that we really like to work with, but we just don't have spots on the team, which by the way, it's another thing to think about. If your heart is set on a place, if they don't have enough seats, it doesn't matter how good you are. They just don't have the budget to hire on a full-time concept artist. So try not to take that personally. We can't just hire everybody. As much as we'd love to work with all the best concept artists in the world and like fill the team with everybody, there's just not budget. It doesn't make any sense. There's not enough work for that many people. So if it's like we really want to work with this person, we want to give them some stuff, then we hire them on as a contractor on an individual basis. Another one we did this with was Paul Reinwand, who he did all of the trading cards that Ellie collects in the game, as well as the coins that Abby collects. He's amazing, like one of the easiest people to work with. And yeah, it was one of those things where it's like we need a really good comic artist. Ashley and I both knew Paul. We're like, let's reach out to him, see if he's available. So I know Environment also, you guys contracted out Shaddy's company, One Pixel Brush, and are now looking at contracting some more individuals. So those are just like, we really like the work. We have some extra work to do right now, so let's like get them some jobs.
Somebody asked if I dabbled in compositing. I tried Nuke in school, and it was the worst semester of my life.
So no.
No.
How well do you see the shopping, costuming pipeline adapting to a non-real world setting? This is a really good question. Sci-fi game, for example. It's going to be a much different situation for a sci-fi. Like if you look at a game, not sci-fi fantasy, God of War, they obviously didn't use a scanning. They might have used some scanning stuff, but it would require like, some pretty elaborate costuming and things like that. I think it can be done like the same way that Hollywood props and costumes get made. You could take those and scan them. But it's just going to be a completely different approach. And we'd have to kind of think about what that would be like. So yeah, I of course think that it could be, but it's just going to provide different challenges. And it would even more necessitate a shopper. So our shopper, whose name's Sarah Lamonic, she has access to Hollywood costume houses because she actually works in TV and film. So she's able to go into places like the Warner Brothers costume house, and they have endless fantasy and sci-fi costumes and all that stuff. So she sources that stuff for us, rents it out, brings it. Obviously, we can't distress that stuff. It's owned by Warner Brothers Studio, but we carefully can put it on and scan it. And we did that for, I had pictures. I wish I'll post them on Twitter one of these days. But we did that for the Uncharted 4 packs, like the multiplayer expansions. They have like pirate costumes on, and there's a ton of stuff. So that we scanned. We had her go to the costume house and get us like a bunch of Western gear and a bunch of pirate gear and stuff. And we put on the outfits, and it was super fun. Just put on some real Hollywood costumes and got scanned on the turntable. So it's totally doable, but you would need to hire a shopper who has access to that stuff. Okay, do you have another one on there?
somebody asked about isometric stuff in your portfolio. I would say for Naughty Dog, no. I'd much rather see a black and white shot from the player's perspective, so a lower camera angle. You can spell out, what exactly is in the environment in that sketch. I think that'd be a lot more helpful to see it from the player's perspective, because that's how everything is going to turn out in the finished product. So we're not going to need to really worry about what does it look like from a bird's eye view. That doesn't really apply too much for what we're going for.
Yeah. This is a good question. Since you guys scan everything, why do you still need to design the pattern of the shirt and some little details? Is it because of copyright issues? So we don't scan the texture information. We are just when I showed you that beautiful scan of my wonderful face. That's what you get when we scan with our thing. We do have access to the one in San Diego that gets like the texture detail and everything, but we choose to texture stuff internally. So that's part of it. Copyright is part of it as well. Like those designs, like a Carhartt jacket is a copyright written thing. So there does have to be alteration to it. And we do alter everything considerably, quite a bit. We'll add pockets, take pockets off, different buttons, different zippers, sort of like cobble stuff together. So yeah, we do think about that as well. Try to, not infringe on any copyrights or anything, but yeah, none of it's textured. It comes out gray, and then we put all the textures onto it. Did you get another one, Eytan?
What type of studies do you like to see in a portfolio? And what do you mean when you say pointing out what you learned? So I think when I say studies, I'd love to see what you are interested in rather than what I like. Show us what you're passionate about. Show us what interests you have outside the realm of concept art. If you are really into a particular type of environment, like city streets or mountain landscapes, show us that. And what about that made you interested in doing a study of it in the first place, right? Was it the lighting? Was it the shapes? Was it something about the colors? Really accentuate that and show us what you are noticing. Show us what you actually care about, and then show a finished concept where you have that same sort of idea, that same where you noticed, like some beautiful grass in Iceland. So you did like a painterly study of that, but then you could also show a concept where you're using what you learned from that. So you maybe are setting your concept in Iceland now because you saw and you understood that that was like really cool mossy grass that you wanted to put somewhere, but you could put it in a completely different concept now because you're now the Iceland grass expert because you did a bunch of studies about it.
Everyone should paint Iceland. It's the most
perfect
landscape.
It's very nice.
This is a really good question. How can you sell a character's personality while separating it from stereotypes? So that's just a matter of having thoughtful people on your team who are going to be cognizant of that. Ashley, our lead, is constantly thinking about that stuff and just trying her best to make sure that we're sort of steering clear of like really obvious tropes. So that's just a matter of having thoughtful and hopefully diverse people on your team who you can bounce stuff off of, and even outside of the concept team, like bouncing stuff off of people, being like, what do you feel about this type of stuff that we're designing for these characters? So that's just having a thoughtful team is gonna help you with that. Is it hard to draw bad, or do you just do those things with your non-dominant hand? It is kind of hard, but it's really fun. I did sometimes use my non-dominant hand, but mostly I would just like look at reference of like, really old drawings that I had done or stuff like that and try to duplicate like some of the shapes and stuff like that. So it's super challenging. You should try it. I don't know, like try it yourself. Try to draw a drawing that like a 14-year-old did that like doesn't draw very much with pencil, and you'll see that it's really hard to forget like, oh yeah, you don't draw flowy when you're 14. You kind of just like, it's hard. It is hard. You should all try it though. Did you have another one?
I have a couple more. How much do we polish the 3D? I think that really depends on what we're going for. So the Blue Sky ones were very polished. Like I was saying with the Scar Village one, I was sculpting and building all the structures in 3D, textured them, did a very, I would say like 70 to 80% of the image was already solved in 3D before I did my final pass of adding photos and really accentuating the lighting and the fog on top of it. But for quicker things, yeah, you don't need a crazy amount to get started. You can simply use some cubes with color just to kind of have the right perspective and see what the color would look like with the type of lighting. It really depends what you want the finished product to look like, you know? And someone was asking how I break down paintings graphically, and is it just the background as the lightest as you go? So no, the background doesn't just get lighter as it goes. The background is going to blend in with whatever the sky color is. So in a few of my paintings, the background is actually the darkest part of the image because the light is in the foreground. So as it's receding, it's actually mixing with the atmosphere. It's actually getting darker because there's no light. So how I break it down is the light is the story. So where the character is standing and what the focus of the image is, that's where I'm going to try to put the light on. So the focal point, the story, that's going to dictate what the light is doing. And from there, that's going to be the most contrast. And moving away from that, it's going to go less and less contrast where I don't want you to look. So the sides of the image, if you look at any of my paintings for The Last of Us, the sides of it have a lot lower contrast than the focal point, which usually has all the bright colors and the light hitting the direct focal point and the character.
Nice. This is a good question. How do you decide what to prioritize with all that's in the game? That's the leads. Like Ashley and John did such a good job of kind of making sure that the stuff that we were working on was made sense for that time in the production. And also we have really good producers. Jen Jesse is the one that leads them up, and they just do a lot of scheduling and a lot of like, when do we need this Dina costume done? Okay, we're gonna do that first. So it's needs based, like what's coming down the pipe, who needs to start working on this next, like if it's held off, who gets bottlenecked by us not doing it. So that's all handled by the leads and by producers. We don't have to do that. Like they schedule it all for us. It's wonderful. Like we literally just get the task and we get to think and be creative, and we don't have to worry about any of that stuff, because that's a whole crazy job in and of itself.
Cool.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about reaching out. Do you send the portfolio straight, or should you network with artists for some advice? I think Alex said this before. Look at the artwork from that company. Have an honest conversation with yourself. Are you at that level or better? I think the important thing is to not waste people's time. So I think it's great to approach people and ask them for advice on what you should do if you're almost ready. But if you haven't done all the other advice we just said, I would do that first before reaching out to someone. But yes, when you are ready, I think networking is great. You could message people or write a polite email asking them to take a look and give you some advice. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I do think that if you're starting out and you just kind of want some really general advice, I think we just get a lot of those questions that are answered best in like books and stuff, and like in doing online classes, like the really sort of I get a lot of like, how do you get started in concept art? And that's a question that like me specifically, like I'm not going to answer that any better or worse than like all of the people that have already answered that question before. Although I'll usually try to point someone in the right direction, like here's a website or something like that. But there reaches a point where it's like, okay, you have to start doing, like there's a huge list of stuff that you have to start focusing on first. So it does, I don't mind when people reach out for like just a little bit of guidance or a little nudge, or just even like you're on the right path or anything like that. But when it's like specific application questions, then it's like, okay, like we have to kind of step it back and like go through all the steps of like getting you ready to even start considering applying. And so, I know sometimes it's hard for you to judge, like where are you? So I think one really good thing you could think of doing if you are going to reach out to professionals is be prepared to have an honest conversation and ask them to have an honest conversation. Be like, can you tell me honestly if I'm, getting there where I should, like, where I'm at? And if you let them know that, like, I do want you to be brutally honest about this, then I think you're going to get the most benefit out of that, reaching out to a professional artist prior to necessarily being ready to being hired. But you do have to be prepared for it to be hurtful, because not hurtful on purpose, but just like it's hard not to take that stuff personal because it's art, and we all take it a little personally. When I reached out to professionals years ago, they were so gentle and so kind with me, but they like gently and kindly were like, you got to work on this stuff first. And at first you're like, I hate this, I hate you, you're mean, and then over time you're like, oh, okay, I get what they're saying. Like, I do. Everybody constantly needs to be working on stuff. So yeah, I think I rambled. It was such a rambling way to
I've been doing that the whole time.
just like blah blah. Someone asked if this was all 3D work for the clothing eBay references. No, those are photos. It's not over 3D. Although when I'm painting over a model, that is 3D. Like when I'm painting on Dina, that's over 3D. So it's either photos or 3D. And that's the end of my question. Someone just had a nice comment saying thanks to both of us, which is very lovely. Thank you for attending
thank
the
you.
stream. Yeah, I think that's probably it, because I have not eaten all day. So, and I drank only iced tea. So I think I need to go eat something. But thank you so much. Thank you, Eytan, for
thanks for having me.
guest speaking on my stream. I always love talking about when we hang out, we don't talk about professional stuff on purpose. We talk about, eating breakfast.
Jurassic Park and video games.
So it's nice to talk about professional stuff with my friend. Thank you to my mod, DDR Muchacho, who, like I said earlier, was absolutely lovely through all this. And he literally taught me how to use Twitch, which was a huge of my computer shut down. Like, he was wonderful. So thank you for your patience. Yeah, and thanks for coming to my streams today, everybody. This was a learning experience for me. I hope you all got something from it. Sorry for some of the discombobulatedness of it, but I really appreciate all the nice questions, and yeah, that you guys all cared enough to come to my stream. So Great. Yeah,
thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.